Center on this beautiful Friday. I'm Allison Brooks, and I am the chair of the executive committee or the board for Resilient by Design, which, as you likely know, is a new research and design challenge launching here in the Bay Area to address local sea level rise. I'm also the executive director of the Bay Area Regional Collaborative. I actually have a governing board across the hall today, so I'm not going to be able to stay here for the whole time. But I help coordinate the regional planning efforts of the 4 regional agencies, 3 of which are in this building, and knock on wood, the Bay Conservation Development Commission is going to be able to join us this year as well. But it also includes the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, the Association of Area Governments, and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And we're excited to host, MTC is actually the host for the Resilient by Design staff here, so they're playing a big role in helping to support our crack team that's going to help us work with the design teams to help accomplish the goals we have, the audacious and big goals we have for this challenge. So the goals are to strengthen our communities by bringing us all together and prepare for the local effects of climate change. And we all know that climate change is happening while we're all working hard to mitigate climate. We know that we're going to experience some impacts, and in many cases we already are. So this challenge, it couldn't come at a more opportune time. And it's so exciting to see all of you here, and I know people are joining us on the webinar as well. So thank you for your time and your interest in helping to make sure that this is a success. In the Bay Area, we've always been at the forefront of progress and innovation, and we're counting on this project to help us continue on that path. And we'd love to hear, we're excited to hear your questions over the next hour. You know, we know that the federal government as well has stepped a little bit away from climate issues. So that also is now makes us increasingly high profile in the Bay Area's role in helping to address this issue. So again, another really important element to making sure that we're successful. And we're particularly excited about the opportunity to connect our local leaders and the great innovators we have in the Bay Area with national and international design experts. And bring us all together to continue to really think outside the box and think about new ways of how we're addressing not only, you know, climate change and this uncertain future we're facing, but the real-time challenges we're facing in the Bay Area right now as well. And that includes income inequality, affordable housing issues, transportation challenges, and how are we going to think creatively to address many of these issues while also recognizing that we have some big changes ahead of us in terms of flooding and sea level rise and other impacts of climate change. We want to make our communities stronger at the same time, recognizing we also need to change kind of how we're doing things a little bit. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to have to step away to go across the hall, but really, again, appreciate your interest and your time. And this isn't going to be successful without the innovation and creativity of all of you in the room and others that are interested in this project. So I'm going to introduce our fearless leader, Amanda Brown-Stevens, who we're so excited to have on board as the Managing Director for Resilient by Design.
Thanks, Allison, and thanks so much for your leadership and to MTC for hosting us for the challenge and today. It's a great building that we like to show off as well. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today and a high-level overview of the challenge. So we do want to get to your questions. I think we want to give you a quick review of the timeline. We also want to talk a little bit about the resources that are available to help as you're developing your teams and your conceptual approach. I want to highlight a few of the exciting projects that are actually happening around the Bay, either underway or planned, that we think embody some of the spirit of this challenge already. We want to talk about some of the advisors and the different committees that we have to help make this challenge a reality. We're going to answer some of the questions that we've gotten most frequently already, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers, and then we'll have some time at the end for some mingling. Don't worry, we won't be talking at you for 2 hours. So as you know, we're in the challenge launch phase at the moment. Our request for qualifications is out in the field. We also have launched our call for site ideas, and I and my team are out and about talking to community members, elected officials, other people interested to come up with ideas for places that we think will be most well suited for this challenge as we develop the research phase. In September, we'll together be embarking on the collaborative research phase of this process, which is an opportunity for design teams to explore the challenges of the Bay together with local experts and community members. In December, our collaborative design phase will begin, where each team will go deep in one particular design opportunity, working again with community members, with local elected officials, and with other stakeholders to develop an innovative and implementable design. And then about this time next year, May 2018, we'll wrap up the challenge with 10 innovative and implementable ideas that'll create a blueprint for resilience for our region and beyond. So since you're here, we're going to assume that you're relatively familiar with the design brief and the materials we already have on our website. So we're not going to go over that in great detail. But I did want to highlight a couple pieces to make sure you're aware of them. So in particular, we have a team resources section of the website, an online resource that we're continuing to add to that basically provides an introduction to the context and challenges facing the Bay Area. It's basically a starter kit to give teams an idea of what to be thinking about as you're developing your team and developing your approach. We also on the website have an FAQ. We got some feedback that was a little bit hard to find, so I think we've highlighted the FAQ a little better on the site. That's something that we're updating regularly as we get questions in to the info@Resilient Bay Area email. So please feel free to email questions whenever you have them. We'll respond to them as quickly as we can. I also wanted to let you know that as you guys are working on developing your approach and thinking through this, my team is hard at work in developing what we're calling a research brief, the information that we want to present to the teams at the beginning of the research phase. We know that a lot of planning and thoughtful work has taken place already in the Bay Area, thinking about climate change adaptation, starting to do some research. We want to make sure we're not reinventing the wheel here, and that we're not asking each team to kind of have to collect individually do work that's already happened. So there's great projects that exist, like the Bayland Habitat Goals Plan that has specific detailed climate change updates using the latest data as of 2015. ECDC is through their Adapting to Rising Tides program, has done some significant mapping around where we think sea level rise, what the areas that are going to be most affected, areas that will be affected for storms and flooding and storm surges. We also have great demographic information that provides insight to where our most vulnerable communities are. So we'll have both an online portal where you can really be able to download data and information that you need. And we'll also have a narrative framework that'll show the multiple challenges that the Bay is facing. And so as we're developing that research briefing, and thinking about how we think about resilience, this is something we've talked about over the last few meetings and events we've had. So I just wanted to get a sense, how many of you guys were at one of our sneak peek events? So a number of you were there, and how many of you guys were at the panel discussion at the Exploratorium? A few people were there as well. So we have, I think the panel discussion at the Exploratorium really gives a good overview of how we're thinking about resilience, both from a social and ecological context, and how, for us, building a resilient region really means a region that can sustain and bounce back from both the chronic stressors that we already know we have, stressors like aging infrastructure, lack of affordable housing, the issues, homelessness, the issues that we're facing today. And we also have, in building for resilience, we need a community that can bounce back from acute shocks, earthquakes, storm surges, that type of thing. So that's really kind of how we're thinking about building a resilient community. And I would encourage you to, if you weren't able to come to the panel discussion at the Exploratorium, we have that linked at our website, and you can take a look. It's got some great information there. So, as Allison mentioned, this design challenge is really well timed and well positioned to be at the forefront for thinking about climate adaptation. At the same time, we know we live in an area known for innovation and creative design already. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about some projects that are happening and underway in the Bay Area that we find inspirational, and we hope you will as well.
And now I'll pass the mic over to Zoe Siegel, Program Manager, to tell you more about them.
Thank you, Amanda. The Sonoma Creek runs from Sonoma County into the San Pablo Bay on the northernmost end of the greater San Francisco Bay. More than 100 years of mining and agricultural operations turned wetlands into stagnant pools, which in turn were breeding grounds for mosquitoes. The remaining agricultural land became too salty for most agriculture, and some has been sold or abandoned. The core of this restoration project involved constructing a network of tidal channels within the marsh to drastically improve tidal exchange and provide habitat to a myriad of marsh-dependent wildlife species. The channel also provides spawning and feeding grounds for the endangered and commercial fishes. Improving hydrology improves water quality by increasing circulation and drastically reducing the amount of pesticides applied to areas of ponded water that facilitate heavy mosquito production. The project also has a vital climate change adaptation component. The construction of a gently graded high marsh transition zone reduces storm surge flooding of adjacent private lands and provides crucial high tide refuge for birds and animals. And finally, implementation of the project also provides hands-on educational opportunities for students who would not otherwise experience natural history in the field setting. The next example is Brooklyn Basin. The Brooklyn Basin Development Project is activating a waterfront site that has seen little use since the middle of the last century. When complete, it will bring homes, both market rate and affordable, jobs, public space, and other amenities into a city in desperate need of more housing. This project is now under construction and was developed with an extensive community engagement component, along with various parks and public access improvements along the Oakland estuary, and the project has built-in flood protection through a perimeter protection component and interior grading accounting for both sea level rise and storm surges. The next example is the Dotson family marsh. This project, formerly known as Bruner Marsh, along the tidal shoreline in Contra Costa County, will be a self-sustaining tidal wetlands area with adjacent seasonal wetlands and coastal prairie habitats, and will provide a key link in the Bay Trail system. The project is designed to accommodate a sea level rise of 55 inches by the year 2100 and includes uplands in order for the wetlands to be able to migrate inland as the sea rises, so they will be able to continue to provide the flood protection and habitat benefits in the near future. This project was made possible because of decades of community engagement for environmental justice in an area impacted for so long by industrial uses. The Dotson family and other Richmond residents worked to protect this land and make sure it benefits the community. This project includes a strong community outreach and educational element as well. This next example is the Hunters Point PG&E area, and this project, although not specifically related to the Bayfront, highlights a strong public-private partnership within a design team related to the reuse of industrial land. This project asks the question of how to transform a formal industrial zone into a dynamic activity center that can be embraced and stewarded by the diverse local community. For much of its history, San Francisco's Bayview Hunters Point has been home to many industrial uses, including a power plant. In 2006, community lobbying helped lead the closure of the power plant, and its owner, PG&E, worked with the community to undertake a process of remediation. When planning for the future of the site, through early conversations with community members, it became clear that this is an area rich in stories, with few outlets to share and capture them. At the same time, it was impossible for community members to develop a plan for the site without ever having been able to spend time there. The team worked on planning for the future use and created an early intervention space that allowed for tangible acts of listening and visioning, as well as community gathering. And finally, Sears Point. Was slated for casino development, the 2,327-acre Sears Point property was acquired by the Sonoma Land Trust in 2004. Diked and drained for over 120 years, the area had subsided 6 feet and was vulnerable to catastrophic flooding. Like much of the North Bay shoreline, the diking and subsidence of the Sears Point project prevented seasonal rains from draining naturally into the bay. At a large annual expense, drainage ditches and pumping stations are maintained and operated on subsided lands to keep fields dry and prevent flooding of Highway 37 and the railroads. In 2015, the Sonoma Land Trust and Ducks Unlimited breached the levee at 2 locations, reuniting the tidal flow to 960 acres of the site and restoring critical habitat for wildlife and incorporating resilient features in the restoration design to help the site adapt to sea level rise. These are all examples of projects in the Bay that exemplify increasing our community's resilience and can serve as inspirations for the types of outcomes we are looking for in this challenge. Now I'd like to transition to introduce important and influential groups who are involved in this challenge. The Research Advisory Committee is working with staff and our executive board to identify a diverse set of vulnerable locations around the Bay for further exploration during the challenge's collaborative research phase. These advisors are also providing input on the most important data and information teams should have as part of the research briefing as they start the competition, and the types of workshops and forums that will be useful for teams. The committee will convene at the end of the collaborative research phase in late November to evaluate the design team's 3 to 5 design opportunities. They will match one site to each team to move forward in the collaborative design phase. And finally, our Research Advisory Committee will provide input on the final designs for use for the jury for their final evaluation process. We're also pleased to announce the recent confirmation of the Resilient by Design jury representing diverse sectors. The jury will select the 10 participating design teams this summer, along with a public announcement of the selected teams in early September. Along with selecting the design teams, they will evaluate the final designs and designate winners at the end of the design phase, based on criteria we are working on now. Additionally, there are a number of consultants. In order to supplement expertise in the challenge, we are gathering local experts and leaders across many fields to play a significant role in support of design teams, Research Advisory Committee, and the staff during the research and design phases. These groups include community partners and other sector advisors who will provide valuable knowledge and resources. In addition, we're planning to offer design teams access to public finance consultants who will provide a briefing to teams about potential funding strategies during the research phase. In the design phase, they will work with the teams individually to develop a financing strategy for each design. Moreover, public engagement consultants will be available to help teams develop and implement community engagement strategies. This concludes the presentation, but our door is wide open to answer your questions about this design challenge. We have included all of the questions that have been asked thus far on our website, and we look forward to hearing your questions. Please feel free please feel free to email us at info@resilientbayarea.org. Thank you very much.